is here again with your old friend Del Pizzana, and I am
Matthew Pullen. Wait, there's
Hey.
something that doesn't matter. I got so confused with this one. I was calling it Lion King forever.
That's
But we're
right.
talking obviously about Tiger King, the now famous documentary as we're sitting in quarantine.
The famous and infamous documentary of the Tiger King on our little friend, the network that is Netflix.
Yes, and as the Three Amigos would put it, infamous. It's so famous, you're infamous.
It is
So,
infamous.
yes, most famous documentary possibly of all time, they're saying?
Oh, I think so. I mean, of course, Netflix is going to say that because, well, it's their business, but still.
Yeah.
Del, tell me, for all the 12 people that have never seen this show so far, what is Tiger King?
Tiger King is about, God, how to put this? Ultimately, it's about how trashy the world of exotic cat people are, save for maybe one or two people who seem sane throughout the documentary and tie it back to reality. Otherwise, this would be a terribly written sketch comedy show. But it is about a gentleman named Joe Exotic, a gay man with two husbands who has a tiger park in Oklahoma, and his feud with a lady named Carol Baskins, who owns Big Cat Rescue. And she's the largest, I believe, accredited reserve in the nation. And they've been going at it for years. And a spoiler alert, I guess not, because they tell you right off the bat in the episode, Joe Exotic is currently in jail, in prison, for murder for hire against Carol Baskins. And the show just gets more weird and fucked up from there. Oh, and I don't even think we got to Florida yet. So there's Florida gets rolled into this whole thing.
Of course Florida does, because Florida always gets rolled into these kind of things.
Like an alligator tussling with its food, it rolls into everything.
I would say the 3-word review or genre that this might be: hillbilly insanity ensues. I think that pretty well just describes pretty much what happens in this show.
I do that. Well, see, some of it does take place in Florida, and there's, my favorite character, Dr. Antle, or Doc Antle. But
I saw those quotes around Doc that you gave him.
That's my favorite part. And in fact, I'm going to take a second, just talk about that. He introduced himself as Dr. Brahana Antle. And, but when he says doctor, they put up his name as Brahana Doc in quotes as a nickname, Antle. And then he proceeds to spell his name out. And he's like, that's Brahana. He spells it out. Antle, A-N-T-L-E. So it's great because you don't find out what he's a doctor of until a little later, but surprise, it's not an accredited degree from a university. Surprise.
He got his degree from the same place that Dr. Spachiman got his degree from.
My favorite line was, and maybe this is a little meta for the show, was before they introduce him as a character, they show him riding along with the film crew, and he's directing them, here's what we're going to do when we get to my house, and you come in and you guys do it like this. And then they're getting out, and it's the one time you see the cameraman kind of really focused on. The director turns around and goes, I'm really glad that he's better at directing this documentary than us. And then it just jumps right, and then they never mention that again, but it really is, it just puts that guy right in his place of like, what an ass, right off the bat.
I think you're also telling everybody something that's very important to the show. Everybody that's involved with Tiger King is an expert. They all feel like they're an expert. They all think they know the exact way on how things should be done. And that's probably also why they all hate each other.
I would say there's one expert in the show, and that the show, it even kind of starts with him, Rick Kirkman, who was an actual famous producer in the 80s and 90s, who was known for things like, I believe it's Inside Edition, but he was an actual producer for TV. He came in initially to do help Joe Exotic's, web show look more professional, but he's the only person with an air of professionality and knowledge and non-insanity about him, although he does look like the cigarette-smoking man from the X-Files, or if you saw Westworld, the man with the black hat. Yes. He looks like Ed Harris's older brother. He does come across as a little creepy, but he's the only person with any sort of authenticity, I guess, that you can respect in the show.
Now, as far as Kirkman goes, I think that the one thing that you can glean from his life as a person is that drugs will take you so low that you go from Inside Edition to have to work with the Tiger King. So don't do drugs, kids.
Well, I think it also shows that it takes you to being from Tiger King to inside a prison.
Exactly.
And here's the thing about this pilot is we're going to talk about like the most crazy thing we've ever seen. and it's still only the pilot because every episode kept ratcheting it up. And by episode 4, Kat and I were watching it, and I had to pause it. And I looked at her and I was like, I will fight every one of these people on a mountain. I don't know how my brain cannot process these characters. These cannot be real people. And it just kept going for like 3 more episodes.
Yeah, every twist and turn, like it was perfect. They would get to the end of the episode, and you'd be like, "Well, that's probably all that can happen, right?" And then at the end of the episode, they're like, "Nope, here's your next turn."
Well, let's for instance, I believe, I don't know if it's the pilot, but it's not going to hurt anything. The Carol Baskin, the Big Cat Rescue, seems like a voice of reason, although she's a little cat nut. She's a cat lady. Let's put it that way. Everything she owns has leopard and cat and tiger print. But then at the end, you're like, oh, Joe Exotic, he's crazy. All these other people are crazy. Doc Antle, he's crazy. But, Carol Baskin, at least she knows what she's doing. And she's really trying to help, the animal rescue. And then, dun, 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 there's a chance you murdered her husband.
Yeah.
What?
There's one on the left, one on the right. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good general overview of the madness that we're dealing with here with Tiger King. Let's start with, how did you first see the show? I mean, we've all been invaded with it through Netflix and everything else, but do you remember what was the first time that you saw it?
Yeah, my girlfriend had been hearing about it. Is it fiance? We're common law married now. I don't know what I should say to not get me in trouble with her, but either way, my significant other had heard about it enough that she was wanting to watch it, and she watched the pilot, and she's like, you have to sit down and watch this with me right now. I'll rewatch it right now. I was like, no, I have no interest in watching a bunch of Floridians, and Appalachian people run around amok in America. I have no interest in that whatsoever. And so she watched about 2 or 3 episodes, and she was like, I'm telling you, you have to watch this. So I believe she finished the entire thing, and finally I agreed, yes, okay, I'll sit down, I'll watch 1 episode. 10 minutes in, by the time Doc Antle appears and you're already like the camera crew's commenting, you realize it's not just one nutty guy. It's a slew. It's watching the Looney Tunes characters as humans. It just became insane. And so she was like, okay, if you're not interested, you don't have to finish. I'm like, are you kidding, woman? Put that remote down. There's no way I'm not at least finishing this episode. And of course, by the end, I had to know how he got in prison. What happened with Carol. There was just madness. It was pure madness. And I can see why this became so big on Netflix. Not only is everybody stuck at home and we all binge watching to begin with, but this story it had everything but intelligence.
Intelligence is nowhere to be found on this one. I remember Joe's picture when he got arrested, when that hit the websites maybe 2.5 years ago. And I remember I was like, what is going on right here? I just assumed it was a Florida person, didn't do a lot of digging. But then when they flashed that mugshot on the screen during the episode, I was like, oh, now it's all coming back to me.
It was weird that it did seem somewhat familiar, but I couldn't have placed it if you had asked me. But now that I've seen it, actually I've seen the pilot now 3 times. It's actually on right now, muted, and I'm reading the closed caption as we go. I do see. I think that mugshot's familiar, but honestly, that could have been a mugshot of almost any person on the cover of National Enquirer for the longest time. I wouldn't have known.
Well, that's true. It's specifically the blonde mullet that really kind of sticks out whenever you see him for the first time.
Well, I guess here's the other thing and not to shame, whatever anybody wants to do with their life, but it's just another layer of he's not only gay, he's polyamorous, and he likes to date boys that are just out of high school. He's quite the older man at this point, and he's obsessed with cats. He has his own TV show in which he always fights with that bitch Carol Baskins, who pretty much ignores him. At one point, I can't remember, this may be in the 2nd episode, but the jackets he wears are so flamboyant. When he puts on that paramedic's outfit to help with the tiger attack before helping.
Takes time to put on the outfit. Yes.
I get that we're supposed to be laughing at him, not with him. And I'm fine with that because I'm completely fine with that. But yeah, people, man, if you want something that you will feel better about your life and your decisions, and you don't want to watch something like Black Mirror or, something like The Platform or something that'll really, really depress you. You want something that'll make you feel good and good about yourself. Boy, Tiger King is up there. Paul, I want to say Lion King so bad, and I will
Mhm.
say there is music in this too that he performs, and I say that with quotations. He has an album of songs he's written about tigers, and it's
Love.
wonderfully,
Tigers in
wonderfully
love.
tigers in love. And boy, if you like modern country and you like tigers and songs about tigers being in love, I don't know where else you're gonna find something like this.
Nowhere else. That's
So
like
it was,
some fan fiction for something that we don't want to know anything about.
yeah, he was shipping tigers, as they say, as the literature in the fan world.
So let's give a little background about how this all came to be. There's a good story on how this all happened. You began to touch on it earlier on. Let's kind of deep dive into how this all came about. So you said Rick Kirkman. He is your documentary filmmaker, as it were. What brought him to the Tiger King?
Well, I think we start a little before that. How the documentarians themselves got interested is they were doing a small documentary, went to go visit someplace else, and a guy comes in and wants to buy some kind of exotic animal. And he says, "Hey, you want to look at something that I have in my truck?" And they go out and snow leopard,
Mm-hmm.
in Florida or possibly Oklahoma, but somewhere in the South, in a hot van. Obviously, this is an Arctic creature. And he's just like, how would somebody get their hands on that? Which led him to, being said, well, I bought this from Joe Exotic. So they just keep snowballing from there. So the documentarians, they spent 5 years of their lives following these people, way before like Indian went to prison or it became like this crime show or anything. It was just about this crazy guy who loved tigers. And that's how the documentary got started. Now Kirkman is brought in because Joe Exotic had a web show that he would and they said there was never more than 80 people watching at any one time. But every night at 6 p.m. they would do a web show, and it looked like two guys sitting in front of a green screen. In fact, I don't know if this episode will be posted video wise like the future ones will, but right now you can see Matt and you can't see me. We look better with me not even appearing on screen and Matt just sitting in his office. We look better than the show Joe Exotic was producing for his nightly show. So basically, Kirkman is brought on to make it look more professional, bring his expertise to the show. And he said he was that day that he found himself sleeping, or that night found himself sleeping at the zoo or animal farm, whatever you want to call it, and just was there for years until the whole thing fell apart. And boy, we're talking about the pilot here. We don't need to talk about the end. Maybe we'll do a show on ending finale episodes someday because I think that'd be good too. But whew, I mean.
Do you remember how Rick became the one that they brought in?
No, I don't remember that. If they contacted him or he contacted them, or no, I don't.
It really strikes me as a Craigslist thing. If I'm guessing, I don't recall either, but I feel like this was a Craigslist kind of situation.
I wouldn't be surprised. I can see that he's like, because he was always known as doing. Curtin was always kind of known as doing some of the crazier stuff, and the segments like lighting himself on fire and getting involved with animals and stuff like that too. So I think they saw as mutually beneficial. One guy was a little over the top, but at least he had cred in the in the business. And the other guy just had this name and the flamboyancy and the character that Kirkman could easily use to rise to, the top. It's like having a performer and a writer, or a lead singer and someone else who writes the music. Elton John and his lyricist, who no one can remember because Elton John's the performer. And I feel it was very much like a symbiosis like that.
And not just the background of the show, but it was amazing to me to listen to everybody talk about their experiences with big cats or exotic animals or wild animals. They all had this story about they were 15 and somebody brought out this tiger. They were 19 and they were at somebody's house. And they're like, hey, do you want to see this python? And the love of that just kind of grew from there.
I did get the feeling that almost most of them did love the animals, but I'll save it because it's actually in the Joe McHale hosts an after show after all the episodes have aired, and there's a few facts that come out, and there's one about a horse. I'll let you watch it. You can jump straight to it, but you do think, oh, these people really have a lot of love for these animals. Of course, one thing Joe Exotic was put in prison for was for euthanizing tiger cubs because they're profitable and they're young. You can sell them, you can get people to buy them, you can let people hold them, do tours with them. But after a certain size, they start to cost you money and they become a drain on your resources. And so people would say, I'd hear a shotgun blast go off and the next day a tiger wasn't there because they would need to free up space. They only had so much room, in the kennels. So as they got older, one or two of the older ones they would keep, but they were accused of euthanizing them and shooting them. But then other times you'd see him and he seemed to really, really love these creatures and animals. And I think some of the older ones that he had bonded with, he kept. But I will say that when you get to the story about the horse, and again, that's in the after show with Joe McHale, that really makes me rethink completely everything about, I mean, just kind of fuck Joe Exotic. Like what a human piece of trash.
So we've talked a little about some of our favorite moments, some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, but let's deep dive into those kind of times. Where do you want to start with your favorite moments of the pilot episode?
I think I already did. My favorite is when Doc Antle tells them how to film him, and they comment on how he's, a better director. So you see behind the scenes that they already think he's kind of a dick. And then when he tells you he's a doctor, and they on the screen very much put his name up as not a doctor, but that his nickname is Doc, it tells you right off the bat what the documentarians think of this guy. They think he's an absolute, kind of pariah. I just think that's probably my favorite. That was the funniest moment to me, the most enjoyable part. That was kind of, you get to see behind the madness of all of it.
I don't hate that. That's a great choice. For me, I have to go shirtless, and I have to go with the teeth guy. The first time you see this beautiful man on screen with no shirt, 1,000 tattoos, and 3 teeth, that sets the bar, that sets the stage. You know exactly what you're getting into. You know where the story is headed. And oh my goodness gracious, it was just a thing of beauty.
Maybe when he came out the first time in that jacket, that gold sparkly jacket, and he goes, "I want you to go over there with the still camera, do what I'm telling, listen to what I'm saying." That, I don't know, that was pretty good too, because they kind of, that's when you go, oh no, he's kind of a dick. He's not just an animal lover. He's a dick. And then maybe just every time he says that bitch Carol Baskins, because he can never talk about her without the preface title of that bitch Carol Baskins. And every time he said it, I laughed.
Carol fucking Baskin. He was
Baskins, maybe that's what it was.
He is amazing.
There are so many people in this I cannot keep up with. I got Joe Exotic. I have to keep looking up Rick Kirkman. Mm-hmm. And then I just keep going, younger husband of Joe.
Yep.
Older husband of Joe that's still also a young guy.
The teeth guy.
One of the guys, teeth guy. Person with missing arm.
Hair metal guy.
Hair metal guy.
No legs guy.
No, I forgot no legs. No legs guy. Guy who's accused of stealing the theme park. Guy who has the monkey in his lap and drives bulldozers.
The fat guy who rides a jet ski.
Yes. I don't know if he said the first one, but also the at this point I kind of don't care. When Joe Exotic runs, we should also say he runs for governor and president at some point, doesn't he? Or like mayor and governor.
Yes.
So he hires somebody, a political what do they call it? Consultant. Yep. And that guy's in the show too, and he seems kind of sane until I don't know, he starts to go off the rails too. It's just, boy, the crazy rallies and rallies and rallies and rallies. What I did enjoy though? Carol's husband, he's just this, not the one that's dead or missing, but the current one.
Are you sure this guy's not dead too?
I don't know, but he's just so nice and he's sweet.
What a wet
and Carol's
blanket.
Sweet and lovely. And you could just tell he is the 3rd or 4th person in her life after cats and other cats and other cats. Then her husband comes in.
You said, Carol's a nice person. You said that a couple of times, but the response from the internet and people that have watched this show are kind of a little bit different. For me, the first time I saw her on screen, I was like, nope, I don't like this lady. I want no part of her. And it just snowballed from there.
I would say, I don't think I like her, but she definitely,
she got a raw deal on this documentary.
Yeah. And you know what, it's funny is, right before I started watching it today, one of my favorite channels is called Legal. If you like other YouTube shows, go watch it. It's where a lawyer watches TV shows and rates how legal they are or how accurate they are. And he did, Lion King, Tiger King. God, I'm gonna quit doing that. But it was funny because he was pointing out, how they edited it versus what the state would actually need to prove, or some of the things like the documents or the will was changed and the powers of attorneys were switched. And he kind of points out that a lot of it isn't that uncommon, and they only kind of made it sound that way by how they cut and interviewed the people. So
Right.
she definitely got some cuts that made. And I will say, even after the after show with Joel McHale, and you get to see some of the people talking to him, some of them feel like they really kind of got it raw too. You know, I think Doc Antel, I think they nailed him perfectly. I think that guy's one of the biggest douches in the world. But there are some of the, like the meth head guy, the tooth guy. He says he's never done drugs in his entire life except for alcohol. He swears by that.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people were unhappy with how they were represented. And I will say this, as a person who made documentaries back in college, one thing is or we were taught, and I found this to be true. When you make a documentary and show it to somebody, they should like how they're represented. Even if you disagree with them, even if other people think they look bad, most people are going to, as long as they feel that you represented them correctly, they're going to be okay with it. Even if other people hate them, they're going to go, well, at least that's what I believe.
Right.
So it's a little disingenuous when someone watches a documentary and says, I don't even think that represents me. I don't know. That's a little bit of a cue that they took some license with some stuff.
That's definitely a negative. I mean, Teeth Guy talked about after the show, like they asked him to take his shirt off and, that kind of stuff. So it's definitely painting a picture in their own way, the way that they think about it. So I think that sometimes is a negative as far as documentaries, is these kind of things. This is an exploitative documentary. There's no
and a sensational one as well. I mean, but you're also taking some of the most sensational people I've never heard of. I don't know how else to go with this. I mean, I don't know if I would watch it if this were like, let's say Errol Morris had made this. As great as Errol Morris is, and one of my favorite, documentarians of all time, if not my favorite, I don't know that it would have been as entertaining in the way of like this long form 8-episode series was. Like, I don't think it would have worked as a movie either. I think that you needed that drama of the episodic nature to really keep people hooked,
And
so
perfect
they had to sensationalize it.
That's what I was going to ask. Next question. Could this be a movie? Could this be something that's, let's do this a little bit differently. Instead of could this be a movie? Because I feel like that it's a documentary.
Well, they're already talking about, they're already talking about making it a Hollywood movie.
There you go.
So there's also that too.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think it could be a documentary. I don't think it'd be a documentary film. There's just way too much to encompass. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But as a 2.5 or 2 hour movie, 90 minute, this would have to be like maybe a 2-part. I'd watch Tiger King and Tiger King 2, The Pride Lands, or something, whatever. I could watch 2 90-minute segments of this, with the proper people playing, David Spade as Joe Dirt, as Joe Exotic, as Joe Exotic.
Now, a lot of people have said that. I'm going to go with Dax
Matthew McConaughey. I could see Dax Shepard.
Yeah,
I could see that for sure. I could see Matthew McConaughey as quite a few of the
all of them. Can it
guys.
just be a Matthew McConaughey movie?
I would absolutely do that. All they did was have different actors and put his face on everybody, like they did on the Winklevi twins.
Yes,
or that movie with Bane.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, the two brothers.
Social Network. The Winklevis.
No, yeah, the Winklevis or whatever. But no, the one with Tom Hardy where he played two brothers.
Legend.
The gangster movie. Legend. See, that was great too. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Gosh, just how many other people?
Who would be Carol Baskin?
Carol Baskins. That's what I was about to say.
Margot Martindale. Drop the mic.
You know what? I think you're right. That is perfect. Character actor Margot Martindale.
Character actor Margot Martindale. Exactly.
Gosh, Doc Antel would have to be almost Will Ferrell for me, or Bill Hader. I could see both of those guys playing that to an extreme that I would really like.
Can they make the comic book guy from The Simpsons just draw him in real life, and that could be that guy?
I can see as which one?
As Doc Antle.
Oh, maybe. I could see him more as the guy who rides the jet ski.
Oh, the jet ski guy. That would be perfect too.
Yeah, comic book guy. Yeah.
That would be perfect.
And you know what? Just put one animated character in. I don't care. Do that.
Exactly. Who's going to notice anyhow? A toothless guy. Do you have anybody for him?
No, but I know, of course, all the tigers would have to be Andy Serkis.
Oh, that makes
sense.
Who else
you going to get? Yeah.
Well, I think you've already said it. I think Tom Hardy as the as toothless guy.
Be good, but I could also see him as the the guy who supposedly goes to kill Carol Baskins too. I could see him as what is his name? I cannot.
Can we just do a
the
special
guy that ends
episode
up
about that
taking
guy?
the park. Yeah, here's the thing is, almost every one of them committed so many crimes that obviously the only way they didn't go to prison was by turning on Joe Exotic and testifying against him. I mean, that is so clear.
How in the world have we made it all the way? And he may not be in the pilot episodes, so this may be why. But why have we not talked about Hat Bandana Guy?
Which one is that?
The new owner guy.
Oh,
He's not
that's
in the
what I'm
pilot,
talking
is
about.
he?
No, that's why
Okay.
we haven't got to him. But man, he's crazy too.
Hat Bandana Guy.
Yeah,
oh, man,
Hat Bandana Guy. Whew. But I'll say this I can't keep jumping to the end, but I kind of want to get to that Joe McHale post show because man, there's some stuff in that come out that I'm like, I would have been nice to know right at the beginning.
All right. How about this? Let's talk and see if we can find
and he
something.
did. I'm sorry, I looked it up. He did run in 2016. Joe Exotic ran for president of the United States of America, which means he was running along with Trump and Hillary. And in 2018, he ran for governor of Oklahoma. And of course, I don't think he did very well. Possibly he didn't even win.
He got 600 votes for governor and 900 for president.
It's more than me.
Okay, let's see if we can find any shows. How about this? Actually, I do have a show, but I'll let you start. Shows that we might compare Tiger King to. Now, this is a one-off, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime situation. Right. But I think that there's some things that we can talk about. So what might you compare this to?
Geez, you're really putting – because I'm trying to think of a show that is this – that goes off the rails, but in the same way. Because, Russian Doll goes off the rails, but in a completely, cool sci-fi interesting looping way, but it's nuts and it's crazy, but all the characters aren't.
I think that you said something earlier that I would like to come back to now, which I kind of was surprised that you said it. So Errol Morris did a little film called Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control. Are you telling me
my favorite film of all time?
This doesn't fit in that universe? That would completely fit in this universe.
I don't know, because at least those people were all literally experts in their field: robotics, rodentry, literal animal trainers,
and they
blind
were
tamers,
maniacs. Or that the series of shorts that he did with the guy who went back to high school 4 times.
Now those were great. First Person, I believe, is that what that show was called? That was great. Yeah. But I'm trying to think of a show that's just as zany without saying The Simpsons.
Right.
It's
it goes to cartoon level absurdity.
It does so quickly. In fact, I will say this. The pilot of The Simpsons, which we'll do eventually, Santa's Little Helper, it was a Christmas episode, was more realistic and had more realistic characters for the pilot in The Simpsons, maybe their whole first season, than this whole show did, period. And when The Simpsons has you beat on grounded reality, I don't know what to tell you people you're doing with your lives.
Now, this one should be pretty easy, but I always like to talk about this. And usually with TV shows, we see people, it's their first show, or maybe Jennifer Aniston shows up for the pilot, something else changes. So, with that in mind, is this anybody's apex mountain? What I mean is, there anybody in this show that this is the high water mark of their life, or their career, or their anything? And I'm going to say everybody. It's everybody's high water mark.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, even Kirkman, who eventually moves to another country with his wife, kind of was like, I've never been more famous than now. Every single one of those people, when they talk later, is like, I can't believe people know who I am when I'm walking down the street. You're a celebrity, Joe McHale. I'm a nobody, and people recognize me. But I would say that Joe Exotic always wanted to be famous. I mean, he wanted to be famous. And I don't know if it was like this or not, or being in prison or not, but he is probably he might be the most famous person in the world right now.
Could be, absolutely. And poor guy's in jail and can't even appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I don't know if they get Netflix in their house. I don't know if he's seen this or what, but he may be the single most famous person in the world for the month of April 2020.
Well, I think we already know the answer to this, but I have to ask anyhow. Is Tiger King recommendable? What says you?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. 10 out of 10 Lions. 10 out of 10 Lions. Yes, there's what is there not to like other than the people? But that's fine because you don't have to like the people. You have to you can dislike the people and love the story and the craziness and the zaniness. Yes. Absolutely 100%. There's a reason why everyone is watching this across the spectrum. I don't mean the autistic spectrum. I mean conservatives, liberals, all races, I mean, the day I logged in after it aired on Reddit, and I was like, Tiger King, Tiger King, Tiger King, Tiger King, Tiger King. That bitch Carol Baskin's like, it was just, what is this? And why is everybody on? And within the week, I don't know anybody that probably hasn't seen it.
I know it's hard to find somebody that doesn't. You gave it 10 out of 10 lions. I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 teeth. So I also recommend it highly.
So, okay. So more than that one guy had.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great.
All right. So we made it to the end. We've talked about
wonderful.
We've talked a little bit about the experience behind the scenes, how it came to be. So now we shall tell the people what our final thoughts on this crazy adventure of Tiger King was. How you feeling now after you've done with it? You've watched the pilot. You've watched the whole thing now a couple times. How you feeling with the Tiger King being part of our lives, being part of American history now? And yeah, go for it.
I will say this: over the last couple of weeks, maybe the last couple of months, I felt like I haven't been doing much with my life. I should be doing more. We're getting back into podcasting again. I haven't been playing music in a while. I finally got around to finishing my schooling. But the second I finished this documentary, I felt so good about every life choice, even the really bad ones I've made in my life. I flipped a car, Matt. I think you know this.
I do.
I still am more okay with that than any decision anybody in this show made. 100%. And man, if you want a show again that makes you feel good, not about other people, but about yourself. Yeah. And what a great thing for being stuck inside. I know not everybody loves Animal Crossing, but it's helping people kill time. And I think for years, people will remember the Animal Crossing, Lion King, or Tiger King, crossover event of April 2020. It'll just be like, hey, remember when we were all stuck inside for a month and there was that crazy tiger guy and that animal game where people ran around with animals? And it was like, we all stayed home. We're paid by the government money. I think it's just going to go down in history as one of the weirdest months of all time.
My final thoughts really kind of encapsulate everything that happened in Tiger King. And that's to say, we just did an entire episode talking about Tiger King, and we did not once mention the person that got their arm eaten off by a tiger. We didn't even talk about that person.
You said missing arm person once. And
yes.
I believe it's a he. They call her she in the show, but she's transitioning and she likes to be called male, but she said it really didn't bother her in the after show. But yes, I think the second episode starts again. Can we go outside the first episode because it's so hard not to, because we're talking about the pilot. But yeah, they at least introduce her in the pilot, and she's sitting there with a missing arm.
No arm.
And they don't get around to explaining it maybe until the second episode. But yeah, there's missing leg guy, missing arm guy, missing teeth guy. I mean, everybody's missing something, parts of their brain, parts of their personality. It's just watch it. Just watch it.
Nothing will ever be more insane than the Secret Diaries of Desmond Pfeiffer.
No,
but I tell you,
that's where
this is close.
This is close. It's so hard because when you explain it, this sounds like it has to be scripted. It really just, I can't believe this is real. But then on the other hand, Desmond Pfeiffer was written and approved and spent money on. So that kind of makes it a little crazier. And I can't wait. That may be the end of season 1, because we're going to talk about that in every episode. That show is the craziest thing probably ever put to television.
Magical.
Referenced, if anybody else cares, in the animated show Clerks. And that's how I learned about Desmond Pfeiffer was I thought, oh, Clerks, that's funny. What a stupid show they have on in the background, The Secret Diaries of Darren Pfeiffer. And then later I learned that was a real show, and it blew my mind. But we'll reference that in every episode, people. Don't you worry. We'll get that Secret Diary in there every time.
TV, what an amazing medium. It means so many things now. It means Netflix. It means Hulu. Sometimes it means CBS, ABC, and NBC, but who knows anymore?
All right, Amazon Prime.
Just crazy.
I got my DuckTales, so I'm happy.
All right, so that's our final thoughts. Let me ask you before we go, do you have a good joke?
Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Right now, just because you brought it up, literally it's the scene where she's getting her arm eaten off, and he runs to change into the medic suit before coming to help her. So people just watch the show. Insane. So do you have a joke to leave us on for the episode? No, other than, I will say this. If this were a sequel to The Lion King, the music was way worse than the first one.
A little bit.
So
A little bit.
Elton John did it right the first time. Joe Exotic, not so much.
You know, you're about over 3 on this bit about doing a cheesy joke you wanted to do. Anyways, people, until next time, we've got a lot of podcasts coming up. I'm very excited about some of the shows we're going to do. We're going to do me and Dell. We're going to do Dell and other people. We're going to do me and other people. Just a lot of people talking about pilots of TV shows and enjoying the medium that we may never see again. It may be gone by the wayside, but we can still talk about it. We can still reminisce, and we can still enjoy TV.